It's finally time to settle the best tier 9 tank destroyer, and it is, of course, the Jagdtiger. And today's video is completely different from our usual, as you'll be seeing from the graphics on screen, is that these are not mine. And of course we're showcasing Pascal here, who has having a brilliant game in the Jagdtiger. And if you want to actually submit your own gameplays, then use the email in the description below, and you can send your own ones, ideally if they're on YouTube already or you've uploaded them, etc. and you're happy for me to share them, then let me know on the email, and of course send me a link to them. Or if you've got an alternative way of sending me them, the clips or whatever it might be, then of course you can do that. But hopefully this video is going to showcase why the Jagdtiger is absolutely really good. And the key thing about the Jagdtiger is that we showcased it not that long ago on the channel, where we managed to pick up like an insane amount of damage. And I think now that we're seeing other people also having results like this and taking them out into the battle field, then yeah, it's really nice to see. And of course it is a tech tree vehicle. You don't actually have to pay money for it for once, for being a very good tank in the game, which is nice to know, because there's a lot of times where you do just have to pay to win, unfortunately. I mean, things like the T-54 kind of Cobra version, that was the tier 9 autoloading heavy tank, medium tank destroyer artillery piece. But yeah, I mean, this one really is a good one indeed, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this. So, the Jagdtiger, what is it all about? Well, it's all about having that high alpha damage, as well as having brilliant penetration, as well as having a little bit of armour. You're not guaranteed to bounce a ton of rounds, as I'm sure if you've come up against one of these things, they're fairly easy to penetrate. They've got a big lower plate. The side armour is very easy to be able to penetrate as well, but they do have some good armor on the superstructure, so they kind of take a little bit of penetration to be able to go through, but at the end of the day it's still quite difficult to reliably be able to do it. So I guess I wouldn't call it bad armor at all. And of course, if you're angling at about 45 degrees, probably more like 35 degrees, you can obviously increase your chances of bouncing a few rounds, and just be a bit of a nuisance for people to be able to reliably pen you, especially lower tier vehicles. I mean, tier 8s are going to really struggle if you start angling and moving really rapidly. It's quite easy to bounce off one if you're not paying 100% attention, which, let's be honest, 95% of console players probably don't do. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to know, but the Jagdtiger primarily focuses around having that high alpha damage, as well as being able to kind of push forward a little bit using that armor. But today's kind of video is actually going to look at what you can do when you play it in a role that is very defensive. I mean, this game is going to end up being a bit of a losing one for, well, not necessarily losing, but you'll find out at the end of the video whether or not they did end up losing. But the enemy team makes some quite aggressive pushes, and of course Duke Pass is a map that usually you don't want to push too far, or at least you want to push the early game, and then you can go from there to kind of decide what you need to do. And often the best thing to do on Duke Pass is to push aside and then decide, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and then go and try and find some side shots on the other flank, which assuming you've won your flank, you can do. But from this position here, really vital position for the defending team on this side. And he manages to shut down the Leopard 1 blind when aiming at the Object 752, which is always funny. But there you go, up to 4,000 combined damage. Really nice so far. And this position right here, like we talked about, is super imperative for you guys to take if you're on the defending side. And that's because you can get shots on all of the people like you've been seeing that are trying to cross on the windmill side. And then you can also make a bit of a return back to where the rest of the tanks on his team are, especially those heavies that are kind of behind in D2 and D3. And from there, what you can do is just kind of get some of the opponents that are trying to crest the ridges, stuff like that if you need to be, but you know, the primary focus is to try and help out on this side. But remember, At this point, you know, this position is really only useful when the opponents are making an aggressive push early on in the game, because if you're sat here at the beginning of the game, a lot of the time, like, you might find that your team win that flank, and then this position becomes significantly worse, so you kind of have to lose the game to be able to use this position effectively, and you don't want to lose too hard to the point where they actually get over to your side of the valley from behind him where he is right now, because then you end up just being up here and then they can poke up the ridge and they can get 3 shots of damage, and then you're always getting spotted, and then yeah, it's just not particularly very nice. Now he tries to get up into this spot here. It's an okay spot. I mean, you get the protection from the left a little bit because of the windmill, so that does definitely help, but I wouldn't rely upon sitting up here. You can quickly go down using the slope behind you, but it is a bit risky as to whether you'll take full damage, so you have to be a little bit aware. But it's a good position for defending exactly this, the CS52 who's pushing up, so really good play there. Hopefully the next shell will actually land on him, gives it a little bit of lead, and goes and takes him out from behind. A little bit of a lucky shell there. I would have given it a little bit more lead on the list, but either way it does actually manage to hit him, probably the very rear end of the list there, but either way, a very good shell. So yeah, nice to see him out of the game, and of course getting him out, especially when he could remain undetected, could be a bit of a pain. Now then, the Object 279E that is perfectly balanced, but not balanced against the Jagdtiger, because this tank is actually a bit of a clubber, and with the premium rounds of the Jagdtiger you really do not have a problem with the 279E, and I mean you'll see in a little bit why that is the case, but from this point, you know, you've got a pretty good defensive position. You've got a little bit of a higher angle than the opponents are going to expect. They're not going to expect you to be up in this spot. I would highly not recommend for the majority of cases to come up here, in my opinion, because as soon as you get spotted, you are open to all flanks. They can all hit you, and they usually do. So just be careful. It is a position to know about, but you shouldn't just use it all of the time. It's more for kind of this defensive spot up here, and if you know that there aren't that many tanks behind you, it helps, and because the rest of his team are over behind him, it's not really a problem. Now he shuts down the Centurion here, really nice use of that, and you could see there a round coming flying past him, which obviously could have hit, could have taken some damage, and especially in the starting point of the game, you can take loads of shells of damage, which obviously you don't want to be doing in this. But he decides he's now going to go and try and go over back to his original starting position, and it's been a typical case of just locking down one area of the map with this tank. And now there are 2 tank destroyers and a 279E along with an artillery piece left alive in this game that he needs to remove. And with the 279E, there is an SU-130 PM, and I believe that there is an ISU-152. Yep, there's the ISU-152K, and of course that vehicle being the ISU-152 that had the broken BL-10 gun that then got removed because it was too overpowered. It was way too overpowered, and then re-released as a premium. Yeah, I mean, brilliant idea that was for wargaming. But right there, that's what I'm talking about with regards to the 279E not being a problem for this tank, since even the frontal armour of the 279E is no match for the premium APCR rounds of the Jagdtiger. And that picks up the damage total to just over 6,600 damage, which is perfect. And it's looking very, very good for the team, looking like they might even win because the enemy team pushed way too aggressively. They just went a bit too far out. Now, unfortunately, a little bit of a movement there. He was on the end of the whole lock, so not able to turn. And then when he did turn it, it pulled the tank right over. But, you know, this ISU could have potentially been taken out, but it's debatable. But here, the typical wargaming physics coming into logic where he just cannot turn whatsoever, and he actually shuts down the ISU-152K with a little snapshot. I probably would have gone with the snapshot as well, so, I mean, there's nothing to really say there. But at this point, you have no idea where the SU-130 PM is, no idea where the artillery is until the teammate in the FV4005 does actually spot him. And yeah, it's definitely a winnable game. I mean, when you've got 1800 hit points, you'd be expecting to come away with the win here. And I mean, with a damage result like this, obviously a player that knows what they're doing, I would definitely expect to be coming away with a win. But the enemy artillery piece, I mean, somehow managing to pick up the FV4005. No idea how that happened. I'm assuming the FV actually missed the shell on the 261 and then he just YOLO'd him and took him out. But, you know, fair enough. I guess, you know, the FV does have a long reload, but you probably shouldn't be getting taken out by an artillery piece. Either way, you know, it happens to the best of us. I won't judge too much. But at this point, you know, there is an SU-130PM. It has way better camo than the Jagd Tiger. The Jagd Tiger's camo is kind of a little bit sucky. It's not particularly amazing. And if you do get spotted, you know, you are open to taking quite a few shells with this thing. Because remember, it is quite a big tank as well. And the side armor is a little bit bad. But either way, really nice to see the Jagd Tiger out in action. And it definitely is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful Tier 9 tank destroyers in the game, if not the most powerful tank destroyer at Tier 9 in the game. Just for consistency as well, it's just such a consistent tank destroyer that just is always there, able to get some decent amount of damage, and that is it's always really nice to see. But, you know, what we're focusing on is now the late game push. We're obviously just trying to push down this flank, see if we can find out where the tank destroyer and artillery is. And yeah, just making the way towards the opponent now. I have no idea where the SU-130PM will maybe crop up, but he obviously is close, and there he is. Finally manages to find him. Makes the auto-aim, probably not the best idea. I mean, it was looking like it should probably have hit, but it doesn't. And at this point, you see the enemy artillery piece coming YOLOing in, but he doesn't manage to get the damage as the Batchat 15558 manages to hit him. The SU-130PM here aiming for way too long and then hits the upper superstructure, which is just not really a weak point. You would have been way better going for that lower plate. But either way, sat there for way too long, and he does indeed manage to get taken out by the enemy the friendly artillery, the Batchat 15558, and a really good result. Thank you very much, Pascal, for uploading it and letting me showcase it here on the channel. Really good game, 7,250 damage, 2,118 base experience, and another reason why this tank is just a menace at the tier. So thank you very much for watching. Of course, let me know your thoughts on the Jagd Tiger in the comment section down below, and hopefully you'll join me back in the next video, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.